Hi, everyone. We are back. It's day 5, final day of the She Is Me conference, and we are so pleased to welcome Megan Correa. She is going to be presenting From Pain to Power. Megan, go ahead.
Good morning from wherever you're tuning in from. Maybe you're tuning in from across the world. So good evening, good afternoon. My name is Megan Correa. I go by the artist name Lil MC. And today I'm going to be presenting to you pretty much a presentation about my life, more specifically, how I transformed the trauma that I endured as a child all the way up until my early 20s into music, into power, into revolution. This presentation is called From Pain to Power, How Hip Hop Saved My Life and Can Save Yours. So we're going to start today. I'm just going to go right off the bat and introduce you and show you exactly who I am today with my latest music video so you can get a sense of who I am as an artist and maybe dive a little bit deeper into my creative world. And then we'll go back in time and see how I got there. This is a quote from the song we're about to hear. The last line of the 16-bar verse is, I say, I'm either losing my mind or finally finding my soul. Let me know.
Feel like I'm already in hell. Yeah. Look.
Big stepping out the Garden of Eden. Scarlet letter on my sweater got the mark of a heathen. I could hardly believe it, he pardoned all of his demons. Regardless of who we fathers, he keeps watering seeds. And we forever dishonor daughters of Eve. Scarred by darkness, but our trauma sparked the heart of a genius. Found the Ark of the Covenant, started parting the seas. Removed the armor, we no longer anemic. Well, time kills, I lie still in lavender fields. Woke up inside a dream within a dream and saw the Vatican sin. The inception of God, creating atoms to build. Genetic matter so extravagant, the past was revealed. Why are you praying that the rapture is real? The devil lives in reverse, but your vernacular heals. Seek no evil, feed no egos, that's the sign of the growth. I'm either losing my mind or finally finding my soul, let me know. Watch my seeds grow from the roots in lavender fields. Taught to grieve, hope for the truth in the lavender fields. Bury bodies and dress up the dirt in lavender fields. Curse the godly, I'm blessing the earth in the lavender fields. Lavender fields. Watch my seeds grow.
I'll stop there before my co-creator and collaborator Vel9 steps up and shares her verse just to keep things moving. But that's a track called Lavender Fields, produced by one of the youth that I now mentor. His name is 10 Beats, and that is my collaborator Vel9. I was obviously the first one that spit, and let's keep going. Sorry. Trying to get to the next slide. Hold on one second. Here we go. Sorry, everyone. I never use StreamYard, so there. Figured it out. So, like I said, I wanted to introduce you straight off the bat to my artistry, just give you a little taste of the type of music that I make. I'm very versatile as an artist, but that song in particular, I really wanted to explore how women have been iconized and kind of shown throughout history, specifically as it pertains to religion, and how we're kind of expected to uphold a certain level of perfection, and how our male counterparts are often given a little bit more leniency as it pertains to sexual exploration. And so right off the bat, what I say is big stepping at the Garden of Eden, scarlet letter on my sweater got the mark of a heathen. Also kind of giving a nod to one of my favorite novels, The Scarlet Letter, where the main character in that was, marked forever with a scarlet letter for having intramarital sex. So I explore a lot of those themes in my music, and it all comes and stems from my experiences growing up. So to backtrack, let's start off from when I was only 5 years old. That's when I first got introduced to music. I've been making music since I was so young. I can't even remember in a year or an element of my life where I wasn't creative. I've been writing songs, writing plays. I was getting my entire family, all my friends to participate with me. And then when I got into elementary school, when I was about 7 years old, 6 years old, I started playing piano. I was in love with piano, and I played that all the way up until high school, and then took a break, and I'm now picking up keys again. But aside from playing keys, I also dabbled in clarinet and percussion, all the while still very much engaged in theater and music. It wasn't until I was about 14 years old that I first experienced sexual trauma. It was incestual sexual trauma, so it really, it just kind of completely derailed my course as far as where I was going academically, what was a priority for me. I was really on track to have what some would consider a very successful career. I had really great grades. I was in all the AP honors classes. I was on varsity cross country and soccer as a freshman in high school. And when that happened to me, I just kind of downward spiraled, and no one really understood what was going on with me. I repressed the memory. I kept it a secret for many years. And the way that I was able to cope with it and just kind of function throughout high school was through drugs or alcohol, and then later drugs. So I would go to parties and I would just get blacked out fairly regularly. And what it did was it created this really vicious cycle of abuse where I was now sucking myself back into the same spaces where I could allow myself to be a victim, and I was targeted by many predatory men. And so the cycle of abuse continued. Now we're adding alcohol and drugs to the mix, so it was worse. So that cycle continued for many years, and it wasn't until I was about 17 that I discovered freestyling. Freestyle is a form of hip hop. Hip hop has 5 different elements: emceeing or rapping, DJing and beat making, break dancing, graffiti art, and the 5th element is knowledge. Within the element of emceeing, there are also other elements. You have performance, you have call and response, you have song creation, and you have just the ability MC, which is where I get my rap name from. Master of ceremonies, the ability to control a crowd. And within that is also freestyling. So freestyling is literally listening to an instrumental, maybe not even listening to one. You could just do it a cappella, and being able to create rhymes off the top of the dome is what we call it. So freestyling became my superpower. My boyfriend at the time introduced it to me, and I became so infatuated, so obsessed with it. All I ever wanted to do was freestyle rap. And I was doing terrible in school. I was failing all my classes. I actually didn't even end up graduating high school, even though I started with a 4.0 GPA, so my parents and my friends were really like, whoa, what's going on with you? But I still had like a really tight knit friend circle. And I was now kind of immersed into this world of hip hop. However, like I said, the trauma continued. I ended up dating really abusive men. And eventually it led to me, everything kind of came to a head when I was about 19 years old. I had taken Molly, I had taken ecstasy, and all of those repressed memories from when I was 14 years old, for whatever reason, came rushing back. And I was awakened to what the truth of my life was, which was that I was sexually abused and raped as a 14-year-old by a relative. And I had been repressing it. And that was why I had been using alcohol and drugs for so long. And the knowledge of the truth of what had happened to me was so overwhelming. It caused me to be extremely depressed and extremely suicidal. And when I was 19 years old, I committed my first suicide attempt in a car. I tried to drive my car off the road, but I ended up surviving. My car spun around 3 times. I ended up hitting a fence, and my car was, when it was found by California Highway Patrol, I was about a foot away from wrapping around a pole 2 separate times. However, I walked off the scene unharmed. All I had was a couple of scratch marks from the seatbelt when it had stopped me from getting into the collision. And so I walked out of that a different person. And again, my life is crazy. About 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant, and you can see my son there in the bottom corner. So I found out I was pregnant. I had gotten sober after that accident because I was drunk at the time. So I not only got in a near-death experience, totaled my car, but I also had a DUI. And then I had, gotten sober because of the incident. It really shook me. 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. I was 19. I was 20 years old at the time, 19 going on 20. And I decided to keep my child. So that is where I was. I'm going to play another video for you all because I've been talking for a minute. And this is one of the first music videos I ever made with my son. And I kind of detail what had happened to me in my life leading up until then.
Been going crazy lately cause I'm stressed out, can't rest till I get this off my chest and confess why I'm bent out of shape. I take it all out on the ones I love the most instead of the ones that I hate. Cause inside me, I'm still writhing with the pain of being raped. Still surviving cause beside me is the one that I made. And he sees me always fleeing from the past I chose to shake off. Take a shot and take off to the next day. Swear I'll never go back to that place, baby, I promise that. Never watch a cop roll me out in a body bag. The reason why I'm always failed taking my life, the same reason why I'm standing up to every fight. But I'm still meeting demons, they're the reason why I'm screaming when I'm dreaming. And I'm waking up trying to fight the same feeling that I'll never be the same way before I went insane. But they say the night is darkest before a new day. Baby, baby, oh, I still need you. Baby, baby, oh, I still need you. I done did it again, I kept it hidden for a minute, but intend to avenge the men pretending their incentive was to end up as friends. You're pathetic and I'm fed up with accepting these trends. Women start making amends, subliminal mind schemes disguise what we might be. Brainwashed to believe equality is a pipe dream. If man is God, who does he pray to stay true? I pay homage to the goddess that bled for fallen angels. Met her when I was strangled, felt her kiss me on the same throat. I used to scream for help before all of my faith broke. Ain't no heaven for the non-compliant, so this ride is for all my women waiting on a silver lining. On the next horizon, I tell them keep on shining. All my sisters waiting for that better pay, keep on riding. Getting closer every day, we keep on rising. I'll keep rapping if you keep on fighting. Baby, oh, I still need you. Baby, baby, oh, I still need you. I spent a long time angry and a long time hating. Full circle adversaries and friends. If you stab me in the back, start running. Cause the only thing better than sex is revenge. But the only thing better than revenge is love. And that's all I really need in the end. And my love runs deep, so when I bump that beat, I grab a pen and write one for them. I said one for them.
So that was a song called I Need You off the very first solo mixtape that I ever dropped. Obviously, you could see the difference between the first video I played Lavender Fields and that one. I look very different. And that was my son in that actual video. So I guess picking up from where I left off, after I had my son, I had actually gone back to college. So I was in community college and I was actually taking classes at the time that I was pregnant. And even I didn't even take a break. A few weeks after giving birth, I was still taking classes online and eventually back in person. I felt really ostracized in a lot of ways from the rest of the students at the school because I was literally breastfeeding in the parking lot in between classes. I didn't really have a lot of friends at the time because I was really just so focused on trying to be a mom. And it was just a completely different life. Not only was I trying to be a mom, but I was sober. And that was something I hadn't experienced since I was 14 years old. And I didn't really have a lot of help. My parents didn't live nearby. And my son's father was dealing with a lot of his own problems at the time. Not to divulge too much, but, he had addiction problems and mental health issues as well. We both did. So eventually I ended up moving from Santa Cruz, which is where I was going to college at the time. And I got into a 4-year school. But if you remember me saying, I actually didn't graduate high school. So at the time, I was going to college and I didn't even have a high school degree, which was not technically legal, but I did it. And then I got my GED when I had to go to the 4-year college. So I got my GED. I had decent grades. I ended up I had a great test scores, recommendations, and all of that. And I got into University of San Francisco. So we moved to San Francisco. And there, things kind of got more stressful and difficult with my son's father and I. I was taking a lot of really difficult classes, and then I was also volunteering at a suicide hotline. I was a teacher's aide in my biological psychology classes. I was doing really well at the time. And I was also working at a trauma and research discovery center. I wanted to eventually go to medical school and become a psychiatrist. So that's why I was working really hard. And I kind of had abandoned music for the most part because I was like, man, those are pipe dreams. There's no way. I got to take things serious. I got a kid now. However, things started to become really problematic between my son's father and I. And eventually we had to split. There were situations where my life became jeopardized, and I had to walk away from that relationship. And that was really difficult for me at this time. I'm 21, 22 years old with a 1-year-old child. Again, I don't really have family, but my brother is living with us. So that was helpful. I had my brother there with me. So we eventually split, and that was such a traumatic breakup because of everything that led up to us splitting without me getting, divulging too much information out of respect for my son. But it was a situation that I had never really visualized myself being able to raise my son on my own. I didn't think I was capable of it. I had this idea of who I was and what I was going to be in my mind, that I was going to be a psychiatrist. I was going to make a certain amount of money. I was going to be sober. I was going to be this cookie cutter, perfect family, right? For whatever reason, I was just, societal conditioning is wild. It really has all this effects on you that you don't even realize that it has. And I felt like I had to be that person in order to, be a good mom. And I think I was still harboring so much shame and guilt from what I had gone through. And then also just shame and guilt for what I had done. I wasn't innocent in all of this. I wasn't just this victim. When I was drinking and on drugs when I was younger, I hurt a lot of people. I did a lot of messed up stuff, and a lot of stuff I don't remember. It was never to the degree of what people had inflicted on me, but nonetheless, it was still not stuff that I'm proud of. And so at this point, I still had never even gone to therapy. And so I was holding on to all of this. And after the split with my son's father, I had to figure out he was, not able to care for him very much at the time because he had to go and deal with his own health issues. And so a lot of the responsibility was put on me, but it was too much responsibility. And I went back to drinking, which was problematic. But aside from drinking, I also turned back to music. So if you look at that first picture there, it says discovering hip hop as a healing and expressive outlet. That is the first hip hop battle that I ever joined. It was called Tourette's Without Regrets. Now it's called Ruckus Revival. It was in Oakland. And I remember being there and being the only woman. Not to say that there weren't other women before me, but it was very rare for a woman to be battling. And I made it to the semifinals, I want to say, my first time. So I was pretty proud because it was really intimidating. As you can see, there's a lot of people. And it's just men really like just being super, super degrading. But like I said, freestyling was like a superpower for me. So I wasn't afraid. I was just anxious. And it was like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm still going to school, and now I'm winning all of these competitions. I start winning rap battles. I start winning all of these freestyle competitions in San Francisco and in Oakland and throughout the Bay Area. Now I'm really tapped into the hip hop community, and I'm getting booked for shows. I'm now working more on music. I'm collaborating more with people, and I'm starting to really like find my footing there and be like, wow, hip hop is what I want to do. I'm still having a lot of issues. So I'm having panic attacks. I have a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. And I end up throughout this time period of still going to school, still being single, still having my son, still doing music. All of that shame and guilt and trauma is starting to really, really, really catch up with me now. And it's even more because now I have the physical abuse as well as all of the sexual abuse. And again, because I'm drinking, I'm putting myself into situations. I mean, honestly, it's sad to say, but I've probably been abused and assaulted 10 to 15 times throughout my life. Some of them were by people that were my friends, because you're just put in situations where you're asleep and people put their hands on you, or, I would get into a lot of fights. I would get concussions, and my friends would bring men home and they would abuse me when I was, concussed. Like there was just so many situations where I had really horrible things happen to me, but it was just because of the environment that I was in and because of the frequency I was vibrating on. I was just vibrating on this really low frequency of unhealed trauma. So at this time, I had 2 more suicide attempts. I was 51-50'd, and I was pretty much forced and mandated to go to therapy. And at this time began my therapy journey. So I was probably 24 at the time, and I discovered a lot about myself. I discovered how to kind of address and deal with the shame and the guilt from all the abuse that I had been through. And, it was a lot. It was really hard. It was really difficult, but I was able to at least finally get treatment. And, I'd been diagnosed with all of these different things, bipolar type 2, PTSD, complex PTSD, generalized anxiety, major depressive disorder. So they were just giving me all of these different diagnoses, panic attacks. I was passing out and fainting all the time. But ultimately, I kind of, over the years, I've realized like I don't really care what the diagnosis is, because now I sit here, I've never been medicated, and I don't feel like there's a hindrance on my life. I feel like ultimately I had complex PTSD, and with that comes a lot of really confusing symptoms that can look like a lot of other diagnoses, because CPTSD is not as commonly studied. But I've done my own research on it, and so I was able to really, over the years, try all of these different therapeutic methods and find a way to cope and to heal that works for me. Throughout this time, I'd also moved to Spain because I was, like I said, still in college. Now I had a support system, my family, my friends. We were living with another really close friend of mine and their son. So I did have a really strong, tight-knit community of support at this time. I wasn't out here solo dolo like I was when I was in Santa Cruz. I went to Spain to study. I brought my son with me. But while I was out there, I was like, man, I dropped my first mixtape. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was single, and I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm about to graduate college. Like, am I going to go down this route of going back to school, trying to work in a psychology field? Like, I really just want to do some music stuff. So I got back from Spain, and I ended up getting another DUI. And I was like in a super duper low. I was so low at this time. I was just like rock bottom. And, I was working at the time. I graduated college. Again, didn't know really what I wanted to do. I was working like as a nanny, as a bartender. I was working like picking up dog poop, like working at a dog kind of kennels type place, like all of these jobs that I hated. And one day I saw one of my close friends. He posted on Facebook, and it was him teaching hip hop at an assembly at a school. And I was like, yo, that is amazing. Like, that is what I want to be doing. He was standing in front of a crowd of 500 kids, rapping, educating them on hip hop history. And I was just like, man, that is so inspiring. And I immediately hit him up, and I was like, yo, I don't know what it takes for me to be able to get involved with what you're doing, but I'll do anything. I'll start from the bottom. I'll be unpaid. I will intern. And he was like, well, I'm actually looking for an assistant. So this man, his name is Marlon Richardson. He's now my life partner. He goes by the artist name Unlearn the World. And at the time, he was the education director for an organization called Hip Hop for Change. And I worked as his assistant and got trained as an educator there. Flash forward now, I'm now the program director there. I've, created so many different programs, worked with hundreds, probably thousands of students across the world, teaching them the power and just the I don't even know, not even the power of hip hop, is just the transformative nature of hip hop, how it can ultimately change your life, change your reality, change the way that you view the world. So I got involved with Hip Hop for Change, and that was kind of like the first stepping stone into this new version of myself. And, my parents and my friends were like, so you went to college and you're not going to do anything in psychology? You're just going to become a hip hop educator? And I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And then over the years, I started developing a women's empowerment program with a collaborator and my colleague, Amani Jade, where we focused on the women pioneers of hip hop. And I had experienced so much as a woman, let alone a woman in hip hop, let alone a woman in the music industry, where there's so much predatory behavior, so much exploitation, you just give a target on your back because there wasn't a lot of women at the time. Now we see so many women rappers and it's amazing. But we still have still so much to overcome. There's still so much work to be done as far as achieving true equality and equity in the hip hop space and in the music industry. But if you look to the right, this picture here is me performing on stage at another organization that I ended up founding, which was called Queens of the Underground. Queens of the Underground is an all-woman hip-hop performance platform I founded back in 2021. And I did this because I wanted two things. One, I wanted all elements of hip-hop to be given the spotlight, because everyone always thinks about hip hop and they just immediately think of rap, and they don't realize that there's all of these other elements, the official elements, like I said, DJing and beat making, breakdancing, graffiti, and then the fifth element, knowledge, aside from emceeing and rapping. But there's also beatboxing. There's also hip hop fashion. So at these events, I would have all women vendors. I would have all women media team. I would have dancers. We would have DJs. We would have poets. We would have beat makers, producers, and of course, rappers and singers. So we would really just try to make it such a holistic hip hop experience. But not only that, we really wanted to highlight underground women and give them an opportunity to get exposed to a bigger or larger audience by bringing out a bigger headliner. So Queens of the Underground has been something that I have dedicated so much time and energy, have experienced so much success, and as well as so many heartbreaks, because working in the music industry is just can be really vile. People can be really selfish and really misleading and deceptive and exploitive. But I'm still so proud of the strength and resilience that I've used because of my own experiences and in life to be able to overcome these challenges and persevere through it in spite of a lot of setbacks. And so Queens of the Underground, that's something that, is really near and dear to my heart that I'm very proud of. And aside from that, I had continued on this journey of sobriety. And I finally, in COVID, said to myself, after another abusive incident happened, I was like, yo, I'm 28 years old and I'm tired of this happening. I'm just so tired of me being in situations where I've drank too much and, I had been drugged. And that wasn't the first time. And it's just, it's unfortunate. And at a certain point, you can no longer blame people, and you kind of have to say, what, this is happening because I'm around people that are vibrating at a low frequency, like I was saying, and are not in their right frame of mind. And I don't want to be around these people anymore. So I decided to get sober. I was in a new relationship at the time with my partner, Marlon, and he expressed that he really wanted me to get sober as well. So I feel like a lot of what I was doing was for him, was to maintain a relationship, and obviously that's not sustainable. So I was sober for 2 years, and then I relapsed because we were having problems within our relationship, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I relapsed, and then was about a year and a half after that where I had been drinking, but I hadn't really been doing drugs. And I did drugs on my birthday. And he was like, I can't be with you if you're going to be like this. I don't want this in my life. And we split. So me and my son, we moved out. And I had to take a really hard look in the mirror and see, look at how much I've changed my life, how much I have evolved. Look at all of this that I've created. I'm teaching. I'm a mentor to so many young people. I've overcome so much. I've been treated for all of, the mental health issues I've had. What is still making it so difficult for me to find sobriety? And I realized that I had really turned my back on God and my higher purpose ever since my first traumatic incident at 14. I just had so much shame and guilt that I had kind of given up on any God. I'd always been very, I've always felt aversive to dogmatic religion. I don't like any religion that kind of imposes itself on people. But as far as spirituality, I was very open to that. And so I started going to a Buddhist temple in San Francisco, not too far from where I was living at the time. And I started studying Buddhism. I started studying breathwork, meditation, chakras, Reiki, everything. I was just immersed in spiritual health. And I had so many different, metaphysical, spiritual experiences throughout this journey that I felt no longer tethered to this world of addiction. I didn't wake up anymore feeling like I'm in pain and I have discomfort. I need something to take this discomfort away. Now I was breathing through it. Now I was writing and I was journaling. My creative process was enhanced. And I just felt this deeper connection to the greater universal energy that kind of binds us all. And so I started kind of sharing those experiences with others. And that's where I am today. You know, I'm completely sober. I don't feel any inclination to drink, even when really stressful, horrible things happen to me, because like I said, I'm in this really predatory music industry and it happens all the time. I still am just able to wake up every day and say, this is just part of my journey. This is part of the growth process. I know, you know, whatever God has in store for me is for me. So I'm not missing out on anything. My destiny is whatever I make of it. And so I've been able to kind of just always put one foot in front of the other and keep on moving, keep it going. So with that, let's go to one more video. This is my performance at Queens of the Underground with an amazing pop dance crew, Agatron. Ready. So that was my first performance at the first Queens of the Underground that I ever hosted. And now we're going 4 years strong. We've done, man, so many shows. We've done a tour. We've done parties. We've performed at Pride events. We've had so many different partnerships. It's really, really beautiful. I'm so proud of everything we've achieved as an organization. And I've had so many different members from the community reach out to me and have been a part of it as far as the team. So my path to transformation, now that you've heard my whole story, number one was I immersed myself in music, performance, and creative expression to learn about myself. I developed the skills in rapping, singing, production. So I produce as well. So I would say maybe like a third of the music I make, I either produce or co-produce, and I play instruments as well. So I developed skills in all of those art forms to become an expert at it. I also started teaching and empowering others, working in juvenile halls, working with foster kids, working with homeless youth, teaching all over the country and all different parts of the world. I've been to Taiwan, I've been to El Salvador to teach hip hop, and I've been to Spain as well and London to perform. And then, like I said, I founded the Queens of the Underground, and I offer mentorship programs to kids. So the organization that I work for, Hip Hop for Change, we have studios in Oakland and San Francisco. I work there regularly. I bring in youth almost every Wednesday, and we work on their own songs. We help them develop their own career pathways. We take them on. We took some youth actually with us to Taiwan to perform. What else have we done? Oh my gosh, we've done so many things. We booked them shows. We've gotten them listening sessions with Empire and Sony. We have now a pathway where students and participants can distribute music through Rock Nation. These are all just bigger music labels and platforms. So, I'm really proud of what we've achieved through Hip Hop for Change as well. So I'll give you a little bit of information of what we do. So this is me teaching at our women's empowerment. Oh, no, sorry. This is me. I was the head of music and the head of theater at East Bay School for Boys, which is an all-boys school in Berkeley. And this is me giving a speech on what hip hop and its impact. I'm super excited to have you all here. We've been working incredibly hard. As you just heard from Nina. Yeah, the kids produced all of these beats. They even know how to produce on their own at this point. They wrote all the lyrics. They wrote the scripts. They did the research themselves. They chose the roles that they wanted to play. They made the graffiti signs. So they literally did this all by themselves. I was just like the hip hop Sherpa that guided them through it. But in addition to learning all of the artistic elements of hip hop, which you'll kind of learn more about throughout the play, I make it a point to teach them the authentic culture and history of hip hop, because I think that is incredibly important. As all of you know, it is Black History Month, and hip hop is a culture that was created by Black and brown youth in New York City, in the South Bronx, and you're gonna learn more about that today. So over the past 4 months that I've been teaching them, it's not just like, yo, write a rap, yo, make a beat. It's like, no, we're gonna learn about the godfathers of hip hop, who are Black heroes, Black and brown heroes, the Black and brown heroines, the women that were there as pioneers as well. Because it is important for a culture such as hip hop, which is very inclusive. It is inclusive of all genders, religions, races. You're man, woman, queer, straight, it doesn't matter. Hip hop invites you in, even though when hip hop was created, it was created because Black and brown people were not allowed in certain spaces. They were not allowed to go to the white occupied spaces that were predominantly white and wealthy. They were not allowed there. They didn't have the funds, they didn't have the resources. So they created their own space. So when I teach these kids about the culture of hip hop, I teach them that history. I teach them that lineage, because I'm so grateful that hip hop allowed me into that space, because hip hop saved my life. And I feel like it is important for these kids to have an access point that is true and authentic. And regardless of what I teach them, they're going to be exposed to hip hop because it is everywhere. It is on the billboards. It is at the halftime show at the Super Bowl. It is in the video games you play. It is in the movies you see. So they're either going to learn about hip hop as something that is misogynistic, violent, exclusive, or they're going to learn about it from someone who's a hip hop historian and learn that hip hop is not negative. There is a spectrum of hip hop music and they all have a place, but the hip hop that they learn from me is hip hop that empowers. So I just wanted to leave that disclaimer, because these kids learned about these historic people in hip hop and they chose who they wanted to enact. They chose who inspired them. So I just wanted to let you all know that was the process, and that is my goal as an educator, is to give them the whole history. So thank you, and I just want to say that we are doing this in honor of Black Appreciation and Black History Month and all of the amazing Black and brown people that have given us the space of hip hop. So without further ado, let's welcome the hip hop musical 1973. So the reason why I made that speech was because one of the administrators were like, we're a little bit worried about the backlash because, some of our students are white and, they're going to be, or, some of the students are not, they were of a different race and they were going to reenact other members from the culture, other rappers, MCs, graffiti artists, producers, and DJs from hip hop history that didn't reflect their race. And I explained to them, well, that means that you probably need to have more diversity in your school. But I also gave that speech as well to just kind of explain, like, look, they're not going to be speaking any differently or like changing the way they dress or they look. They're just going to be kind of reenacting the story based on the heroes that they chose. So that was a speech that I gave. So, we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon, but I just want to share how important and how integral hip hop has been for me in my path to healing. It wasn't the only healing tool that I used. I had to definitely go to a lot of therapy, find spirituality and all of that. But if it hadn't been for hip hop, I wouldn't have found community. I wouldn't have found my voice. I wouldn't have be able to process all the things that I had been through, and I wouldn't have been empowered. I wouldn't have built this community, and I wouldn't have found value in who I was. And I probably, wouldn't be standing here today. Hip hop helped me process trauma, rebuild confidence. It helped me empower young women and gender diverse youth and mentor the next generation of creators. So the last video I want to share with you all is our women's empowerment program, Hip Hop for Change. This is a recap video.
What I particularly loved about teaching our women's empowerment curriculum, aside from demonstrating the artistic elements of hip hop, was being able to introduce students to so many unspoken and unrecognized female pioneers within the culture. I loved hearing them react to the stories we told of the obstacles that so many female pioneers had to overcome being women in male-dominated spaces.
That by centering the narratives of pioneers who are women, it gives us all clear access to the content, the questions, and ourselves reflected. And mostly what I love is just that we encourage critical thinking, pairing it with creative energy, and that allows us to break down barriers in art and in life.
One thing I learned about hip hop for women, that they could do a lot more things that more men thought they couldn't.
Remember Charmin 65 was the first female graffiti artist? What would she do that was so cool?
She used her disadvantages to her benefit.
Yeah, she wore specifically feminine clothes, and the people just assumed that a woman wouldn't be able to do graffiti, so she was able to spread a lot of graffiti that way.
Remember the girl, Roxanne Shante, that won all the rap battles? What happened with her? Tell me a little bit about that.
The judge made her lose because they didn't want a woman to be the face of hip hop. She signed the first mainstream hip hop contract ever.
Underground is like where no one usually knows, and mainstream is popular. Everyone does it. It's a trend.
Ready, go! Raise your hand up if you're completely done with your graffiti. All right, y'all, clap it up, clap it up.
So those are fifth graders, Queensland Elementary School in Oakland. I know we're running out of time. I was going to have us do a couple of exercises, but seeing as I kind of went long-winded with my speaker series, we'll just kind of go right to the end there, and maybe in some other time I'll do more of a workshop presentation and show you guys my writing process. But this is where you guys can find me. You can stay connected with me. Go to my website, lilmcmusic.com. You can find me on Instagram. That's kind of the only social media platform I use because social media just drains me. So I try to just keep it all in one spot. So you can find me at lilmc.music. I'm also on Facebook, but very much not active. Or if you have like inquiries or questions, you want to reach out to me directly, I also left my email there so that you all can contact me, info@lilmcmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening to my story, allowing me to get so vulnerable and deep and kind of dive into, what makes me me and how I've been able to overcome so many obstacles and get to where I am today. I'm actually in New York City about to go visit a billboard that's going to be in Times Square. So I'm really proud of everything I've overcome. And all I want to do is kind of share that with the rest of the world, especially with women, because we really have so much power within us and we're able to do anything, especially if we just recognize the resilience that we have within us. So thank you all so much. And with that, my name is Megan Correa, aka Lil MC, and it's been a pleasure sharing this story with you all.
Megan, thank you so much. That was amazing, and you're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so honest and telling us your story. It was inspiring, and I love watching you and your talent and the kids, and it's just amazing. And I'm an East Bay girl too. I'm from Pinole, so I know all of the things you're talking about, the places, and I miss the East Bay. I live in Seattle now, so but you know, lots of friends, musicians, and amazing people in the area down there. So thank you. Rarely do we, I mean, lots of people come here and tell their stories, but rarely do people, are they as real and as raw as you were today. So I appreciate you. And I know that your story is going to have a huge impact on our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It was an honor. I'm so excited to check out all the other speakers as well.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Okay, we're going to be back with Sheena Yap Chan in about 10 minutes. Stay tuned.